Hey everybody, and welcome to Lost Genre Tales from Reddit. In this video, we're going to go through different revenge stories, from regular revenge to pro revenge to petty revenge. These stories don't require an update, and I'm going to keep my commentary as short as possible. Now, as usual, if you just want to navigate through the different parts of the video, you can always use the timestamps right below it. Now, let's get started with the first story. This post is from the subreddit Regular Revenge, and it's by user Morthos Coilbone. Treat everyone with respect. Never know who they might be. This is a story a friend of mine told me a number of years ago, and I was reminded of it. Some of the details are a little iffy, so bear with me. Said friend had applied to a company, I can't remember which one, and was waiting with other applicants for an interview. Everyone was chatting to kill time and relieve some of the tension, and the secretary had mentioned that she started fairly recently and was still getting used to the job. It was pretty jovial. That's when Entitled Prick, EP, walked in. He had the kind of attitude that screamed, "I shouldn't have to inhale, the air should just flow into my lungs." Entitled Prick walks to the secretary's desk and gives his name and that he was there for an interview. He adds that he wanted to be the next one seen because there was somewhere he needed to be. The secretary told him that she couldn't do that and that he'd just have to wait his turn to be called. This irritated Entitled Prick, and he said something along the lines of she must be new or stupid and that he didn't like waiting. He berated her a bit more and told her again to just mark him as next or he'd make sure she'd get canned as soon as he was hired on. Everyone was shocked that this a-hole would say this to her. He berated her a bit more, turned like he was going to sit down, but the boss walked out with the lady he was interviewing. He thanked her, then called on Entitled Prick for his interview. In retrospect, this was a big red flag. The secretary never told the boss who was next. He just said Entitled Prick's name. Before anyone could say anything, the boss took Entitled Prick into his office and they were gone. The secretary just sat there. She was definitely holding back tears. After a bit, she got back to work doing whatever she could. Can't cry if you're busy. Everyone said she should go into his office and explain what happened, that they'd back her. She was about to say something when she looked at her desk, smiled, and then said, "No, I'm good." One of the others was about to say something, but she told him it was okay. An hour later, Entitled Prick walked out of his interview and had no color on his face. He said not one word to anyone and just left. The boss called the next few people, the secretary wishing them all good luck with a smile. Dan, my friend, was called in and they got through the interview. And when the boss thanked him for his time and he would be in touch, Dan told him he just had to ask about Entitled Prick and what happened. The boss stopped what he was doing, said no problem, and explained everything. The secretary, being new, was still working on figuring out the phone system and had a hard time remembering how to reach him over it. So, he came up with a solution for during the interviews. They'd just leave the line open, mute his end so people couldn't hear what he was doing, and turn down his speaker. During the lady's interview, he needed to ask his secretary a question. He turned up the speaker and was about to unmute his end when he overheard Entitled Prick's tirade. He was fuming and asked the interviewee if she would be okay with rescheduling. She had no argument and just wanted to get out of the way. When he got back with Entitled Prick, both sat in silence for a while. Boss then told him that he heard the crap Entitled Prick said to the secretary. Before Entitled Prick could say a word, the boss told him that he wanted to hire someone that he could depend on, so he hired his wife. Cue an ass chewing for the history books. He then told Entitled Prick that not only was there no way in hell he was hiring him, but he was also going to call the HR of other companies that were in the area to let them know what he did. This would effectively kill any chance of him getting a job with any of those companies. When Entitled Prick said he couldn't do that, the boss told him that what he said wasn't said during his interview, so he wasn't under any kind of protection, if any. The boss then told him to get the F out. Dan didn't get the job, but he was content with the experience. Aw man, I just love these kinds of stories, don't you guys? It's just fantastic when an a-hole gets his comeuppance this way. Love it! Now let's move on to the next post. This post is from the subreddit Pro Revenge and it's by user AE2AW. Hippity hoppity, this is no longer your property to manage. After graduating college, my girlfriend and I moved to a new state where she was accepted into an engineering program. We found a lovely garden apartment style complex that advertised 100 megabytes per second internet speed included in the price among a few other amenities. When we met the property manager, he seemed strict but well-mannered, nothing out of the ordinary, until we signed the lease. The first problem. Suddenly, walking into his office was not allowed without an appointment. I had come by to ask a question, saw him browsing social media, and figured he was available as he made himself to us when we first came by, unannounced, to view a model apartment. Nope, he refused to answer my question and asked me to make an appointment via email. The second problem. The terms of our lease included an attachment to complete within 48 hours of accepting the keys that details all discrepancies within the unit. We submitted the attachment via email around the 40th hour. The property manager responded that the terms recently changed from 48 to 24 hours, and since we had passed 24 hours, we would be held liable for all found damages. When citing our copy of the lease, which explicitly stated 48 hours, he informs us that we signed an outdated copy and would need to make an appointment to come by the office and sign a new lease. The third problem. The internet speed was not 100 megabytes as advertised. It was less than 15 off-peak and about 5 on-peak. We again contacted the property manager to complain, but were referred to make an appointment. The fourth problem. We made an appointment to address the previous 3 problems. During this meeting, and after I finished voicing our issues, the property manager leans forward and says, "There are other communities in this neighborhood that may be more accepting of people like you and your girlfriend. You're welcome to break the lease and leave." People like you and your girlfriend. I had thought he was referencing our no-nonsense response to his nonsense. Daily communication, scheduling multiple meetings to address these issues, etc. But my girlfriend believed he was speaking towards our skin colors. Her, a black woman, and myself, a white man. My girlfriend jokingly told me to check my privilege before getting serious and explaining to me that we were experiencing discrimination at the very least. The solution. I did some research and discovered the property manager worked for a larger organization that owned several complexes throughout the country. I found their director of human resources on LinkedIn and made a connection. I then emailed her copies of all email correspondence, screenshots of the lease, pictures of the internet speed flags advertised by the road, and more screenshots of online speed tests. We further noted this comment and the implications behind it. The human resources director replied within a few hours and promised us she would look into the issue. About 2 days later, the property manager called and asked us to come by his office at our convenience. We showed up near the end of the day and sat down across from him. He then proceeded to ask us if we would be willing to write a letter stating we accepted his apology, despite not yet offering said apology, and in return he would credit us a month's rent, accept our damages attachment, and promise to have the ISP on site within a week to assess the internet issues. We declined. He got personal with us and revealed his job may be at stake and asked us to reconsider. My girlfriend leaned forward and said, "There are other communities in this neighborhood that may be more accepting of people like you. You're welcome to leave." The property manager was replaced in a week with a super sweet older woman who not only gave us all the things the original property manager had promised, the 1-month credit, accepting the damages attachment, and the further scheduling maintenance to fix said damages, having the ISP assess and upgrade the internet to promised speeds, but she also made it clear her office was always open for anything we may need. I looked up the old property manager a few months ago later on LinkedIn. still unemployed. Oh well, serves him right for being an idiot. Now, let's move on to the next one. This post is from the subreddit Petty Revenge, and it's by user KittenAttack776. Threaten my family for standing on your grass? Enjoy your fines from the city for your broken down garage. We live next to a large open grass field. There is an old house on the property, but it's condemned and no one lives there. The owner of the property only shows up to mow the field, but does nothing else with the property. The garage beside the house is caving in on itself and just looks like trash. People walk through the field to go fish on the river, walk their dogs, or just wander. Most people think it's just city public property. A few days ago, we were outside playing with our dog and toddler. They were walking a few feet off our driveway, which is technically his property. He just happened to be driving by and pulled over and began yelling and was just in general overly aggressive. He yelled that we need to stay on our own property. He accused us of tossing cigarette butts, we don't smoke, and beer cans, we're never drinking outside, all over the field. He also yelled that we drive all over his field causing mud puddles. Again, completely not true. He then pointed to our dog and complained that she needs to stay off his grass. In the past, he had specifically said he did not care if our dog walked on the field. He proceeded to say if he found any dog crap anywhere, he was going to retaliate against us and we're not going to like it. This all happened within a few minutes. My boyfriend took the toddler and dog inside and came back out to try to talk to him and sort out these crazy accusations, and the guy had already left. We called the police to document the incident since he did make a threat. We are now looking into getting cameras and a way to get a fence up, since the other neighbors also play with their dogs in the field and strangers walk through all the time. He cannot blame us for any evidence of dogs being present, but that won't stop him from blaming us anyways, and I don't know what he means by retaliate. I've never been bothered by the crappy house on the property. Not my business, not my problem. But since he wants to be an a-hole, suddenly I'm super bothered by it. So I called the city code enforcement office and filed a complaint. Said I've been seeing wild animals coming and going from the building and that I see kids walk through the field all the time and I worry someone's gonna get hurt. And that my neighbors are all upset about this too. Now, all of this is true, but I just frankly never gave a crap until now. He now has 30 days to either demolish the whole thing or fix it up. It's definitely beyond fixing. Or he has to appear in front of a judge. The city will fine him severely, and if action still isn't taken, they'll seize the property from him entirely. You want to scream at my family in front of my toddler and threaten my dog? I think you're gonna be a little too busy now with the city breathing down your neck. Enjoy your fines, court costs, and construction bills. Edit. For some clarification, the building on the property is not his home. It's an old house that has been uncared for and allowed to fall apart for the past decade. Multiple people in the neighborhood have called and complained, but the old code enforcement officer just gave him warning after warning. The property owner has been asked by neighbors to please take care of the problem because it's awful to look at and wild animals hide in there. He has refused. There is a new code enforcement officer that actually cares and wants it taken care of. Property owner has had years to take care of this issue. Me calling only helped speed things up, but it was going to happen anyways. We are not angry because he doesn't want us on the property. It's his property and he has that right. We are angry because he gave us permission to play fetch on the field, and when he changed his mind, which again is his right, instead of telling us he has changed his mind, he instead shows up out of nowhere, very hostile and making threats. Now, I know I said no updates, but this one has an update. COVID caused all court appearances to be pushed back by a few months, so he hadn't done a thing to the building. Just within the past 2 weeks, he finally had a crew come take it down. It took about a week. I assume he waited till the last possible moment before his updated court date to do this. When the garage door was opened, you could see it was much worse than expected. The back portion of the roof was completely caved in all the way to the ground. It's a miracle nobody got hurt while they were taking things out of there. But now the building is gone and it's one less eyesore and danger to the neighborhood. The house itself is still pretty bad, but not as bad as the garage. Also, found out where he lives, and it's in this mansion of a house in a very wealthy neighborhood. So clearly, he does well enough for himself that he could have afforded to take care of these issues long ago. He just didn't care. We haven't had any further altercations with him. He has no reason to even know we called because most of the neighborhood has been complaining for years. But we are careful to avoid him, and our dog now wears an electric collar so no one can question her being outside our property. I've still seen other people walking around the field, but now that it's winter, that'll stop for a while. Here's hoping he finally sells the property so someone can actually take care of it. Well, that's a crappy property owner, but good for you, OP. You got rid of that eyesore and you had a little bit of revenge there too. Now let's move on to the last one. This one's from the subreddit Regular Revenge, classified as Petty Chaotic Evil. It's by user VengefulPotato89. Using me to babysit your kids while you cheat on me? Look out. Harry and I had been together for 3 years. He had 2 kids, and as a result, we didn't want to rush moving in together. For the 3 months prior, every week on the days when Harry had his kids, he would have to work late and asked me to look after his kids for him. I'd pick them up from after-school care, make them dinner, get them ready for bed, etc. There had also been a few times he had been offered an overnight shift, healthcare, and I had babysat then too and taken them to school the next morning. I was happy to help as he seemed to need the extra cash and had borrowed money from me. Anyway, I was dutiful watching a kid's movie when my friend messaged me that she had seen him in a club kissing a woman. I said she must have been mistaken because he was at work, but she sent me some pictures and sure enough it was him. I was livid, but had to keep it inside for the kids' sake. I put them to bed as early as possible and tried to stay calm waiting for him to come back. Then the message came that he had to work overnight. I tried calling him, no answer, and after a few tries, straight to voicemail. He had turned his phone off. This was the point where I lost it, but I couldn't leave or vent because of the kids. I'm not proud of what I did. I went slowly through each room trying to create as much unnoticeable chaos as possible. I removed the most useful screwdriver from his toolbox, broke all the filaments in his spare bulbs, swapped the washing and dishwashing powder for a mixture of flour, sugar, and whatever else I could find. I filed one of his professional certificates, required for audits, in a folder he wouldn't look in. I put jam underneath the soles of his hiking boots, started unpicking the buttons on a few of his shirts, same with the flies on his favorite pair of pants. I changed the Wi-Fi and router passwords. I guess you get the idea. My final act at 6 AM, just before I had to wake the kids up and act like everything was fine, was to disable the chip in his passport and slightly deface it so it might look like it was forged. I guess COVID made that redundant. Anyway, I left things a few days and avoided too much contact. Then I messaged him saying I didn't feel I was really invested in the relationship anymore and I was sorry and hoped he had a nice life. He tried calling numerous times. I blocked him everywhere and haven't heard from him since. Wow, OP, your revenge was too nice for what he actually did to you. But what really matters is that you got him out of your life. So good for you, OP. Thanks for sharing. And it's that time that we've reached the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed today's stories. I certainly did reading them to you. So if you did, then go ahead and give the video a like. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel and become a member of our Discord community that just keeps growing and it is fantastic. And like I said in the beginning of the video, all of the relevant links are in the video description below, so be sure to check them out. And finally, I'd like to thank you all for taking the time to watch this video. It really does mean a lot to me that you guys enjoy this content, so thank you once again. And having said all that, I will see you guys in the next video.